Alright, time for the second video of the day. Now, see, virtue is a contentious thing because a lot of people disagree on what it is. Specifically, what actions one takes are virtuous. But I'm sure, hopefully, that the basics of virtue can be nailed down, and at the very least, if not, you can see what I consider to be virtuous. It's not purely Aristotelian, even if, as we'll get into, Aristotle is where the basic idea of virtue ethics derives. See, virtue as a way of living, whether it be for personal reasons or ethical ones, is rooted firmly in virtue ethics. And that ethical model, virtue ethics, is derived from Aristotle and his beliefs. See, Aristotle argues that a person should behave in a virtuous manner so as to become virtuous, and thus become a moral person. But what is virtuous for an individual? Now, as stated, naturally many people have their own ideas on the subject, including Aristotle himself, with each proposing their own, with Aristotle using his golden mean as a way to demonstrate what he believed to be virtuous. Now, the golden mean is the position that the most virtuous position to hold is between two extremes. For example, if you are someone who wants to be confident, let's say, you want to talk about confidence as a virtue. Well, it is the mean between self-depreciation, basically devaluing yourself and treating yourself as worthless, and arrogance, overinflating your sense of worth beyond what it truly is. Confidence is knowing your weaknesses, but simultaneously being proud of what you can do and recognizing what value you do have. That is the golden mean in essence. Bravery is the same. It's between almost the passivity of not wanting to do anything under any circumstances and the foolhardiness of wanting to charge things and just handle things that you can't. So the whole idea of fools rush in where angels fear to tread, it's that idea. Bravery is when you recognize where angels fear to tread and avoid it if you can, but when things go down, you're still willing to act. That is bravery. And the golden mean is the basis for a lot of Aristotle's ethics. However, for the average person, there are a few things that can nearly universally be argued as virtuous, golden mean or no. I'm personally not as big a fan of the golden mean purely because there are some things that even Aristotle would agree are just too extreme. But because he relied so heavily on the golden mean, he couldn't just say, that's too extreme, it shouldn't be done. Like, for example, murder. There's no moral position between the extreme of murder. Murdering one person is already a bad thing. It's not a competition between one murder and slaughtering an entire people. It's just no. That's why Aristotle himself tried to say that certain things were already to an extreme, and so you had to balance that. But hurting someone unnecessarily is, technically speaking, not that extreme, but it's something that is still not virtuous. And so, the golden mean really doesn't hold up as well in that situation. But there are certain things that we can all pretty much agree are virtuous. Taking care of those in need, educating those who do not know things, protecting those who need defending or otherwise cannot defend themselves, being honest to others in deed as best as one can. I'll clarify that one later. Fulfilling one's obligations, what you have agreed to and what you know you have to do, and showing respect to those who earn it are all virtuous. To elaborate on the honesty one, you are never going to be completely honest. There is no way that for every single waking moment in the day, you are going to be a fully honest person. People deceive, whether instinctually or not, intentionally or not, because people don't want to show everything to other people. I am not telling you my personal life, by choice and with good reason. You are almost certainly not going to do the same to me. You are not going to share it. You're going to keep that to yourself. And when people discuss things or argue, well, that's not very honest, is it? No, it isn't. But that's not the point. See, sometimes people want to hide things, and that's fine. But to be virtuous is when you are dealing with someone, and when you are handling a person and they need to know the truth, or it is completely irrelevant whether they know, you default to honesty. You act in an honest way. You do not put up false pretenses, and you do not use said pretenses to gain something unnecessarily. To be honest to others, indeed, is to basically put your true self forwards and not try to put on a mask to gain something. You just act as you are and behave properly. That is to be honest indeed. And of course, people will always have their own moments where they aren't, but the goal is to do it as best as one can. So when you can afford it, or when you try to, that is being virtuous, and your goal is to increase that as much as you can while minimizing the times you don't, even knowing that you can never do it fully, because people are people. Even absent Aristotle's framework of the golden mean, virtue can still be understood, even if it's harder to define. After all, if your understanding of virtue is not tied to any specific rule, it's a lot harder to nail down. That's just kind of how it is. But of course, a hard and fast rule can often break when placed into specific situations, so you need some flexibility. Where that ends and where it becomes subjectivity is kind of hard to tell sometimes, but it's important to actually have objective virtues, to try to establish things so that they are objective, because if you make it subjective, then it is very easy for a person to say, well, if I decide what virtue is, and I'm a virtuous person, then the things I do are clearly virtuous, so that's what virtue is. But that is a very good way to have things backfire and get very egotistical people. So you need to have some solid framework. And this allows us to build a basic understanding of personal virtue, and not only perform it, but measure others to it and see if their words and actions line up. So basically, you need to establish virtue first. And these are a good baseline alongside just generally taking care of others. You think of those old morals you might hear as a kid, protect others, help others, be honest, show respect. Those childhood things can best be summarized as virtues. Honesty is a virtue. Kindness, benevolence, that's a virtue. Training others, education, that is a virtue. Virtue is the ability to help another, essentially. To lift them up and benefit them, or, to at the very least, provide them with the information or knowledge to lift themselves up. It is the opposite of degeneration, to allow people to forget, to not know, or to be unable to protect themselves. A society degenerates when its pieces, its people, can no longer rely on each other and instead break down. Virtue generates greater strength, whether through education, protection, benevolence, or any other action which raises the standards for everyone. That is virtue at its most basic idea. And if you want to challenge that, go right ahead. This may sound weird to some people, but I actually like to argue. In fact, I find your comments on my videos quite entertaining and just fun. A person does too, so I do hope you continue with that. I thank you for watching. Have a good one.